Welcome to the Mad Profit Podcast, where we interview active investors, entrepreneurs, and experts who left corporate jobs to buy or start successful ventures and live life on their own terms. Listen to their stories, learn from their experiences, and heed their advice so you too can create mad profits and the life you've always wanted. And now, here's your host, Laurent Truc.
Back, everybody, and thank you. We are back with the Mad Profit Podcast, and today I have a special guest with me, John Than from Efficiency. Hello, John.
Hey, Lawrence. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again.
You too. Always a pleasure.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. We go back a long ways, and I know you've done a big jump into the entrepreneurship world. And so I'm very excited to hear how things are going. A lot of our audience members really are in that boat where they're currently in a corporate gig and they're considering jumping into something on their own. And so you've been there, done that. And what you do is work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So I think it'll be really interesting to hear your side and take on that, on what you're seeing. So would you give us a bit of your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Sure thing. I grew up in Toronto. I immigrated to Canada when I was 3. I came here with my parents and had the kind of the unique immigration experience of going through the date line during my birthday. So I had my birthday in Zurich, Montreal, Toronto, all at once, kind of thing.
Oh wow!
Kind of cute. Yeah, it's kind of cool. My dad tells me that story many times, and then when we started in Canada, we grew up in one of the worst neighborhoods in Toronto, called at the Jane and Finch area, which has now become, a little bit more, I think, gentrified, but it was a ghetto at the time. And anyways, I got lucky. I was accepted into the gifted program. We actually moved into a better neighborhood because my brother got into an arts program. So a little bit of luck with the boys, and I went through high school pretty lost, I think. Ended up doing an extra year of high school before I figured it all out. Went to university, thought I'd start a school, and wrote a book on education and took educational and cognitive psychology.
Wow.
Finally got the book off the ground 14 years later. And then after years of working, figured out I really enjoyed sales, really enjoyed the software and getting deep into software, and so ended up joining Salesforce.com and then moved on to NetSuite. Actually, from Salesforce.com, I started a consulting practice, just a solo act for about almost a year, and won some really great contracts. But just had my daughter, and the biggest contract I won, way bigger than me. I was partnered up with a large consulting firm. But it required me going to the States for 6 days a week. And at the time my daughter was just born, I just couldn't do it. So went and got the corporate gig as well. But always knew I wanted to go back and start that. I thought that there'd be a lot of success there. And, if you got the bug, I think that's a big part of it, is knowing that you want to get there one day and then slowly putting the pieces in place. I always kept the Rolodex, and that kind of helped.
Yeah. Very cool. So you did a couple of gigs. You ended up at NetSuite. How long were you at NetSuite before you felt that it was time to really take an entrepreneurial stint?
So I was about 6.5 years at NetSuite, and I was just having a really great time. It was a great team. I cut my teeth as a true manager for the first time there. Led teams as large as 20 plus staff with responsibilities of over, at some point, over 20 million in revenue, kind of thing. So,
Okay.
it was good, just great training. But I was having a great time. It was a great bunch of people I was working with. We had a great culture in the Toronto office, and I didn't want to let that go. Although I wanted, the itch was there for a while. When I hit my 40th birthday, that was it. I just had to do it.
Something about that 40 to 45 year range.
Yeah. It's now or never, right? You feel like it's like the last chance to have kids because you're going to be too tired and too old after that.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing with the business. After that, I looked at myself. I said, I don't think I'm going to want to do this when I'm 50.
Yeah.
So, I'll be more experienced. Yeah, I'll be more ready maybe, but I'll also be more tired, and energy is a big part of it.
Absolutely. So, the age was a factor,
Mhm.
and you had now a number of years of experience with NetSuite. Did you ever consider doing something completely different, or was it about doing something entrepreneurial within this realm that you've built for yourself?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I absolutely consider doing something different. I consider doing things as widely varied as actually starting a school or, um, opening a restaurant, like a whole bunch of different things. But uh, it's kind of like if you put the coat on, it just doesn't feel right.
Mm,
Same thing with business ideas. If it doesn't feel like it's a great fitting coat, don't do it.
mhm.
Um, but keep putting coats on, and all of a sudden one day I was like, oh my God, this is it. I saw a job posting for an expert admin, which is someone who, or it's an administrator of NetSuite, someone who works with a single company and just manages their business system all day long and slowly improves it and works on special projects and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know, I, I saw one posting, I looked around for others, and there was over 150 postings for this job in
Wow.
just the U.S. on one site that was Indeed at the time, and I couldn't believe it. And the salaries were great, and I was like, you know, you don't really need someone full time to do this, especially if they know what they're doing. You really shouldn't be in your business system modifying it that much. So I said, this is it. Just fractionalize your like a rented administrator, if you will. Provide a better service than normally you can get because you got a broader base of knowledge, and over time you build out a team. Your administrator can do anything, whereas a solo person only knows what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know if they're doing things wrong or against best practice. Whereas
Mhm.
if you can fractionalize it out, then you have the opportunity to leverage the entire knowledge of the firm. And of course, hilariously, at the time it seemed like, wow, this is a ground shaking idea. I got to do this. The coat fits perfectly. Let's go. Later on, I'm like, yeah, everybody does that. So, but that's okay. Ignorance is bliss. So that's what started it.
Very good, very good. So, how walk me through kind of those first transitioning out and transitioning into your new gig, because you didn't go very far from your customer base, right?
Right.
So it's kind of unique. It's not like you jumped into a completely different industry. You had to start from scratch. So how was that transition? How did you leave your work and tell them, hey, you'll probably run into me as we go along, right? That could be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was cool. I think you know um, in all things in life, I think it's important to be a good person and to be professional. And because of that, I think I was lucky enough to have goodwill from many people when I left. When I decided it was time, the first thing I did is I sat down with my boss and I said, "Look, I think it's time. I want to. I'm gonna tender my resignation." I didn't actually do it right then and there,
Hmm.
um, but I said, this is definitely happening, and just let me know what the best timing is. It doesn't have to be today or tomorrow, but it needs to be soon. I said maximum would be 2 months. So he asked me for 6 weeks, and then I started. As soon as that conversation happened, I started talking to some of the customers that I had worked with in the past and that had postings up and stuff like that. And then as I was just looking for advice, I ended up talking to a friend of mine who put me in touch with. She said, she used to be the administrator of a NetSuite customer.
Hmm.
She was the COO at the time and just administering the system, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And she said, I'm leaving. You can take my role. And so I made the pitch, got my customer, and the rest is history. When I told the wife that I was quitting my high-paying job and we just bought a big house and a big mortgage, she wanted to kill me. But the first customer I knew would keep me afloat for about 3-4 months.
Hmm.
Um, and even though it was a 12-month contract, I was prepared to spend it all in the first 3 months just to get by. Um, but yeah, so I got the first customer about 2 weeks before I left. So the
Wow.
timing couldn't have been better. I was very lucky, and and then that was all she wrote. From there was, I talked to as many people as I could. I told them I was leaving. I told our senior executives I was leaving.
Hmm.
So I'm not going far. I would love to stay in the community and do this, keep doing work with, um, keep trying to do the good work I was doing in the company, just, in a different angle. And it's amazing how many people support you. And throughout the, um, the growth of our company, we have had times when, um, I didn't know how to take it to the next level or get past a roadblock. Definitely when times were lean, and I remember that lesson, and I just talked to people, and I told
Hmm.
them, "Hey, this is what I'm up to. Can you help?" Um, and it's amazing how many people want to just help you.
Yeah,
You just feel so grateful. Yeah, it's really cool.
that's incredible. Did NetSuite see you as competition as you left, or did they see you as a partner? How was that relationship?
So it's a good question. It's what they call co-opetition.
Okay.
In the software world, there's a lot of There's a lot of companies that do channel sales and channel services, services coming from partners of theirs, even though they themselves have a services business within the company. And so NetSuite was not that different that way. Um, it was what was interesting was the sales reps referred a lot of business to us, to me originally, and they were literally giving up commission to do that,
Wow.
just because they thought we would take care of their customer better. Um, and so, that's humbling. And then
Hmm.
that's also a ton of stress because you're like, okay, now I really have to not mess up anything.
Sure.
Um, so, yeah, so that's how it went. It was pretty good.
So those first few months, I can only imagine, are super stressful. You've got all the weight on your shoulders of trying to make enough money, even with your first customer. Um, I know you pretty well, so I'm sure you had visions of grandeur that you weren't going to be a one person shop for very long. So you're probably thinking, how do I grow this thing? How do I maximize it? And you're getting reps from another company sending you business that you probably can't handle the workload. So how did you manage those first, let's say the first 6 months? What does that look like? Is that a 25-hour day?
So that's a good question. That's a very good question. So, for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, I'll tell you, I had, I, you know, I'm a good deep sleeper. I had nightmares for the first maybe 8 months.
Really?
Uh, yeah, it was very stressful. I mean, it was hand to mouth.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, you get spoiled in a corporate job, especially if you've done well. Um, you forget what it's like to earn $1,000. You just take it for granted that you got a salary that, at the time my salary was like, I don't know, close to 20 grand a month, right?
Mhm.
Gross. Like it was good. Um, and I was like, how the hell am I going to find people to give me that much money every month? Right? That's
Yeah,
just to take
yeah,
care of me.
yeah.
Forget it. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. So what happened? So after the first customer, you do realize like I did actually execute the strategy that I had planned, which is to go email all these guys that are looking for administrators and um, and say, hey, why don't you try this fractional concept that we have? I had the website set up, I had some documentation, I had some systems and process in place ready to kind of go. And out of all of those that I blasted and emailed, I got 0 responses.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Now, well, I got 0 responses in the first 6 months. I'll say a few actually ended up calling me quite a lot later, like 6 months, 12 months later, 2 years later, like random, very random.
Mhm.
But overall, it wasn't successful that way. But what did end up happening out of that, because I really truly believe growing a business is all about talking to as many people as you can, and once you make that declaration, hey, I am doing this and I am putting my entire life on the line on this,
Mhm.
everybody lines up to help you. It's just so weird, and it's incredible at the same time. So by talking to all these people, I said, hey, do you know anyone at this company that I know they're looking, I could help them, and they would, and by doing that, you know how many people said, I don't know anyone at that company, but I know someone over here, or
Oh.
you don't want to work with that company, let me give you 2 others.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I had leads. It was like it took 2 months, and then all of a sudden, and I've never been able to keep up with the demand since.
Wow.
I hired my first employee 4 months into the job. I called my old friend who had left NetSuite as well about a year ago because there was a non-compete, so I couldn't hire anybody from there. But he had been left a while ago, and I said, hey, would you come over? Are you interested? And he's like, I love the idea. I'd be very interested. I showed him what the work was like, so he did a little bit of moonlighting for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, I'm ready. I said, okay, well, I'm ready to, I gave him a big piece of, I basically gave him everything I was earning.
Yeah.
And then we were able to get 2 more customers, and then because of the extra bandwidth, and then by 12 months later, we had 5 employees.
Wow.
Yeah, and I borrowed some money from a friend. Actually, I took some money from a friend as investment because we always talked about starting business together. Just a little bit of money, not much. Gave away way too much of the company for that money, but again, he took a flyer on me. I was nothing at the time, so
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty cool.
And that was money. So that wasn't money for marketing because it seemed like the flow was coming in. That was more money for hiring to grow.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because we hired. So the vision was always to hire guys and train them ourselves.
Okay.
The problem with that is that they make you nothing for 4 months, 5 months. You got to carry a salary with zero return for a while. And then even when they come out of that, they're only partially effective for a little while longer.
And then they leave after 2 years. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always the risk.
Yeah, it is. But
you took that approach of training because you wanted to manage quality control, or there really just wasn't a program out there to train them in what you were doing?
Correct. There's a couple reasons that I took that route. One was that the skill set was rare in the marketplace, so that made it easy for me to find work, but hard for me to grow the company. So that was a strategic decision that I really, when I look back, it seemed obvious, and I lucked into it. Really, it has served us very, very well since. And to this day, we believe in grooming, hiring, and growing our own. Everyone else who doesn't do that and tries to hire experience in the marketplace doesn't do as well as we've done.
Excellent.
And so we've really done well by putting our faith in the next generation, whether they're young or old or skinny or fat. It doesn't matter. We give them our knowledge and train them up, and it's been really good.
Very good. Very good. So now it's in what, 4 years?
It's 5 years now.
5 years now. Okay.
Yeah.
How big employee-wise is the business?
So we are now about 50 people, and we'll probably grow 50% again next year.
Wow.
This year was a very aggressive growth. We actually 2018 last year we transformed. We shed probably 20% headcount, 25% almost, and then replaced them all and then doubled up on top of that. So it was very, very heavy turnover, but it was one of those, it was just shedding a skin and putting a new one on.
And shedding low-performing talent, is that what you were trying to get rid of, or?
Yeah, so I mean, very frankly, part of it was low-performing talent. Part of it was people that didn't believe in the same vision for the next level as they did at this level, right? So, at one level, you're a family, you take care of each other. There's a lot of room to be still figuring it out and growing slowly and organically. But when you want to put your foot on the pedal, not everyone can do that with you, and there will be casualties along the way, and there were a few for us. I could have done better as well, for sure, many times. That shouldn't even be a question. But that's what it took. Yeah. So we shed some folks. We kept, I think, the most important crew, anyways. And it was a good transformation. It was tough, but it was good.
Well, it worked, clearly. So
it's worked. Yeah, it's worked. It's worked really well. Yeah, we blew our targets away this year. It was crazy. The targets we came into the year with, we adjusted them up twice by May.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, significantly adjusted them up too.
Yeah, and you're still focused word of mouth. Are you doing active marketing at this point?
Correct. We don't do a lot of active marketing. I mean, most of our marketing really in our channel too. Since we're very channel driven, our marketing is not a traditional I think a lot of people think of marketing in like three concepts. They think of it in the retail concept where there's a brand and there's advertising and there's all that stuff. And then they think of it in the B2B concept where there's emails and campaigns and you build a pipeline of sales. But I think in reality, there's actually three modes of marketing. And the third mode of marketing that a lot of people don't understand is just honest to God networking and building the word of mouth in such a way that it's a virtuous circle. So we've done well at that. So we don't do a lot of the retail marketing. We do almost no retail marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We do a little bit of the B2B marketing by doing, trade show events. We sponsor a bunch of events and stuff like that. But for the most part, we do that only to be an active participant in the trade network that we're part of.
Got it.
To give back in a way, if you will. Really, it all comes down to word of mouth marketing and the friendships you build, the
Mm-hmm.
credibility you develop, and and along the way, I think we've done a lot of small favors for folks, and they remembered that, and that's kind of helped us get referred to the next thing.
That's
so
awesome.
Favors today, yeah.
Very good. Good advice. What would you have done differently along the way? I mean, you're when I look at what you've built, you've kind of compressed what I see a lot of people do in a matter of a very short period of time. You went from startup to rapid hiring to, evolving from a small startup to 50 people and still still growing. So you've had probably more challenges than most in a very short period of time. So what were probably the biggest challenges in that you probably would have done differently if you'd go back?
For sure, the top two are ones that if you're kind of an MBA geek like I am, you don't put as much emphasis on it as you should have, but it would be HR and policies and procedures.
Oh yeah.
So we a lot of last year in the third year business or fourth year business actually, we had to overhaul our policies and procedures, not because we didn't have them, but because they weren't written down well and they weren't accessible, and some of them were most of them were operational.
Mm-hmm.
None of them were really corporate and strategic, because again, you were small enough that it was the family, people just you knew everything going on all the time.
Yeah.
So for sure, if I look back to scale, we could have gotten here a lot earlier, I think, if I had known better and known what was the opportunity better in front of me. But that said, it was, policies and procedures would have made a big difference. It's surprising how important those are. Now, are they important when you're 10 people big? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But when you want to get to 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 and 100, you've got to have them in place, and you can't be making them up as you go.
Sure.
They have to be there properly and formally, and you probably want it to be evolution 2 or 3 already by the time you get to the 20th, 30th person, because then it's tried and tested and everyone's towing that line already well. So that was one thing I didn't pay any attention to that I should have. The second one is definitely hiring. Hiring is, to this day there's an art and a science to it, of course, but knowing what you want to hire and how to hire it. I got lucky, I told you, with the MBA decision,
Mm-hmm.
And hiring new grads and training them ourselves. They're not all new grads, like new grads with some experience, but what I didn't get lucky with was hiring senior executives. And so I churned through that a little bit more than I wanted to.
Mm.
And that was all because I didn't really plan out what I needed the senior leadership team to do. And if you think about it, those are the people that I work with every day. Those are the people that need to be my right hand.
Sure.
On all those things. And because their leadership, their personalities will shape your company past 20, 30 people. After that, you start to lose that daily touch with everybody. It's just too
Mm-hmm.
hard. So they're the ones that shape the company. And if I had picked them out earlier and planned that earlier, it would have made a big difference.
So
we survived and figured it out, but we had to make some corrections to do it.
Yeah. So this actually dovetail well into kind of my next question was around skill set, right? So you came in with a certain set of skill sets. Obviously, you learned a lot about the business from working at NetSuite itself. You had a sales background, you had a management background. Were there any gaps in your skill set And it's always a great question to ask confident entrepreneurs, like,
Mhm.
how bad are your gaps? But were there any gaps that, when you were looking for that middle management, senior management levels, you try to fill through hiring? And is that the policy you're using to find good talent?
So I would say that um, you could look at it two ways. You could look at it as every bloody thing was a gap, or you could look at it as, you had a couple good things going for you. If I take the middle ground approach, I'll say I had a couple of good things going for me. I knew how to sell. I wasn't afraid to pick up a phone. That
Hmm.
helped a lot. And that made a big difference. Funny enough, I was afraid to pick up the phone originally, right? Everyone, you think it's a big secret that you're starting a business, and it's the opposite thing of what you should do. You should just announce it to the world, open up, tell everybody what you're doing, tell them exactly how you're doing it,
Hmm.
and don't be afraid. Nobody wants to copy you yet. You're nothing yet, so
Yeah.
nobody wants to copy you. Don't worry. um, and then and then the other thing I think I had going for me was that I had the technical knowledge of what to do, so I had enough credibility to for people to put their faith in me, right? Because ultimately, you're staring down at and often you're staring directly at the CEO. It's not like you're working with mid-level or low-level,
Hmm.
at least not in my business. So they're looking at you and saying like, you better not fail me because my whole like the day-to-day operations is banking on you figuring it out.
Yeah.
And they don't expect you to know it up front necessarily, but they do expect you to hold the bag and figure it out.
Hmm.
So those skill sets help me, but the skill sets I didn't have, oh my God, there's tons. I didn't have nearly as good HR skill sets as I thought I did. I definitely did not. My internal communication and leadership skills had to get ramped up in a hurry, and to this day they need a lot of ramping, and they'll continue to need a lot of ramping. It's one thing to command, it's another thing to enforce, it's another thing to influence, and then it's a completely fourth thing to enroll.
Mm.
Those are just very, very different communication things, and you got to use them at very different stages, different places, different people, different times. Right?
Interesting.
So you're a chameleon all the time as a leader. You can't be a certain way, and that's what you take to the table every time. No,
Hmm.
no, no. You come to the table and figure out what's needed, and then you become that. So yeah, so everything could use improvement. I mean, even as a salesperson, I used a lot of improvement. So
Hmm.
I would say that thank God I had some skills, but none of them were enough.
Very
and you get,
interesting.
and you got to always be ready to grow.
Yeah. Cool. So what's next for efficiency? Where do you see it heading? Expanding? What's the future hold?
So that's a great question. We have a 5-year strategic plan, believe it or not. We've always, I think, maybe because of some of our guys coming from larger organizations, we always have a bit of a formalized process for the size that we're at, maybe too formal sometimes. But what's next for us is, we're looking to hit about 70, 75 people next year. Most of our growth, we're going to count it in terms of headcount.
Hmm.
Because for us, to date so far, our primary constraint has been supply of good people that we can apply to projects that customers trust, that we trust, and that deliver great work. So if you look at it that way, if we can grow to 75 and then 100 next year, by 2023, we're looking to be, in the 120 person range company, give or
Wow.
take 25. And then we'll be also looking at, multiple applications. We've done a couple things uniquely besides, the hiring piece. We make a methodology that's application specific. So we turn IT on its head in the sense like, it's not here's the way that we do our services and we apply that across many products. It's what's the product like? Build the methodology correct to the
Hmm.
product, because these days the product is it's so well thought out, and there's so much great software out there really
Yeah.
that each one has a different look and feel. And so we've always said if we do another product, we'll have a new methodology. And so by 2023, we'll be doing another product and we'll have another methodology and we'll have a splinter team that does that. But definitely, we got a lot of basics to cover ground on first. We got international to expand to. We
Hmm.
have broader vertical penetration than what we have right now. We focus on about 3. And so, yeah, I would say, we got a lot of standard stuff to go through still for the next few years. After that, we'll look at some more creative things, anything from M&A um, to potentially splintering off things like the way we train or the library of knowledge and assets that we have,
Mm.
even to software development. So all of those things are on the table.
That's
And they
awesome.
all
Very
they
good.
all kind of have their own little skunkworks project, and let the best idea
Yeah.
up.
Brilliant. Very good. Very good. So thanks for the background on you and your business. One of the things I wanted to plug away at as well is so you're in the business of helping businesses really optimize their processes, right?
Mhm.
Um, and maybe we probably should have started with this, but can you give a little bit of background around what NetSuite is? Because I think it'll dovetail into some conversations around what you're seeing with some entrepreneurship and some businesses and startups and things like that. I think you've got a very unique view talking to all these CEOs.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's definitely the best part of the job is we just engage with all these high growth companies. Most of the time, companies are looking to put a system in place to run their business, like NetSuite, when they're in or ready for transformation, and
Hmm.
so they're either in it or they're ready for it. And so NetSuite is a system that allows you to run your entire business on one platform. So it's a single, unique uh, system. It's not an integrated system per se. Some people will call it that, but ultimately it's a single code base. And it runs everything from your customer relationship management to your inventory to your order management to your financials, financial reporting, internal operations process control. It can do things like track HR and do marketing campaigns if you put some bolt-ons on it. It can do other cool things like track field service. It, in its core, has project management capabilities, and it can be very tailored. The system is highly tailorable, so you can, turn it into a system that works for a media agency, as well as a system that works for a wholesale distributor, as well as a
Hmm.
system that works for food and beverage manufacturers. So you got all these different things that it can be, and you just need someone to shape it that way for you. Um, and so, that's what the application does, and that's what our job is, to interact with customers that want to take this system, which is, this platform, which is, somewhat tailored to what they need, but it's never exactly what they want,
Hmm.
and then turn it into exactly what they want, or help them change who they are so that it fits exactly nicely with the software too, which is, I would say, just as 50-50 both.
Oh, is it? Yeah. There's that many companies willing to change their processes to kind of format to the software.
Yeah, so in the software space, for those that are thinking about buying or looking at implementing software, be ready for change. If you're not ready for change, don't buy the software. It'll be a very poor. It's going to be an ugly process then, and you'll probably end up having to spend a lot of money and backing out of it entirely. If you're
Oh,
not
really?
ready for change, the software is not a good idea.
Got it.
Simple as yeah.
Got it.
It really is. It comes hand in hand.
Is NetSuite unique in the marketplace? Like, who does it compete with? Is it part Salesforce, part other entities?
Yeah, absolutely. So NetSuite competes with a lot of other applications. It is relatively unique in its own space in the sense that it's the biggest, broadest, most mature SaaS being cloud-based
Hmm.
application. But there's definitely good competitors out there. There's everything from Acumatica and SAP. Ironically, Oracle itself can sometimes compete with NetSuite, but most of the time it's going to be Microsoft, the SAPs, or there's a lot of niche distribution softwares out there. There's a lot of niche ones that service certain markets and business verticals. And it will compete with the point solutions as well, which, again, in the ERP space, which is the enterprise resource planning space, which is the big breadth one,
Hmm.
the granddaddy, if you will. Um, they affectionately call everything else a point solution because it doesn't solve as big a footprint as what ERP is trying to do. But those are big softwares of their own. Salesforce.com. You got everything from Coupa to Ceridians of the payroll world and the workplace, and there's Workday, which
Hmm.
would call itself an ERP, but if you think about total footprint, it's not quite the same. So again, nuances of being in the space, if you will, but at the end of the day, lots of competition. A lot of people have a lot of interesting solutions on solving how you can run your business entirely through a browser.
Very cool. So a lot of people that I interact with, because I'm in the online space, have that online slant to them. So I was looking at NetSuite, and I think it does cover things like e-commerce. Is there anything else kind of in that space that it would work well with?
Yeah, so actually, NetSuite does have a very strong and powerful e-commerce platform. It works well for AP processes, AR processes. Sorry, were you asking whether it can do more, or were you asking whether there's other bolt-ons that work well with it?
I guess both, right? I mean, for somebody who's in the online space right now, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's taking digital download orders, things like that, is
Mhm.
NetSuite a viable platform for them to look at?
Okay, great question. So from your kind of space, the Maddox Capital space, and the NetSuite space, there's going to be it's a broad swath, but there's a specific type of business that would fit well with it. Those that distribute a lot of product through e-commerce have always gravitated to NetSuite and done well with NetSuite. Anybody who's got a dropship model where they barely touch product, that'll fit well on NetSuite too. Those that need a lot of customer interaction even after the fact can fit well on NetSuite, because NetSuite's got a really powerful customer portal that you can tailor to to the nines. And so if that's needed, then it fits well. If you just want to publish a lot of content, NetSuite's not the best e-commerce solution out there for that. And if you want to, if you're like a 2-product company, NetSuite's too big in the back end to set up just to do e-commerce for that. You should go with one of the more standard e-commerce platforms like Shopify, maybe the lower end Magentos, or even a WooCommerce or something like that. But if you have a big enough catalog and you're a semi-mature company where you got a catalog of SKUs that you're selling, or services, downloadable content is fine. Although there's no DRM in NetSuite, like there's no like kind of digital rights management and all that digital management stuff. But again, if you have a catalog of more than 100 products, NetSuite's probably a viable option.
Okay, that's the magic number, 100 products or so, something like that.
I mean, that's my rule of thumb. You got guys on NetSuite that are like ship 5 products, but they do a lot of volume and they do a lot to retailers and businesses. Then it can fit. But in general, I'd say, yeah, if you don't have a big e-commerce catalog or you're not growing into one, you're going to see a little less advantage in NetSuite over other e-commerce platforms.
Very cool. So from a business owner perspective, what are some things that you're seeing out there in the marketplace? Like, are business owners waiting too long to start implementing systems? You actually talked that a little bit in your own practice, right, around putting policies in place. From an NetSuite perspective, it's really around having that rigor, both on the accounting side as well as the material management side, all that stuff. So what are you seeing? Do you feel that companies wait too long? Are they too early in some of their decisions? When's the right time they should be bringing in automation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a powerful question, I think. I would say that you want to settle down on your business plan a little bit. Like, you don't want to be in the middle of not sure whether your product has market acceptance or your services has found a good niche. So if you're still embryonic like that, it's too early. But once you get past that and you start to feel any opportunity to scale and you think that the demand is there, then that's the right time for system, or any time later. But a system is for sure a lot of work. It took us, we do this every day, and it took us a year to get our system in place and really working fairly well. And now this year, 3 years later, we're finally going to do the full renovation we always wanted to do. So I think if you're like a real estate agent, right, you're going to buy a house and not put a ton of time into it until you know that you can stay there for a bit. Then maybe you're going to reno it, enjoy the reno, and then also make a sale with it later. It's kind of the same thing with a business, I think. You got to know if this is the right neighborhood for you in the first place.
Yeah.
But once you do, put some money into establishing how you want, at least the structure of the house to be what you want. Make sure you got the garage there and some
Mhm.
basics in landscaping, basics in the room, whatever. So that is definitely the same for a business. And yeah, and the system, like the system can support you, but it can also get in your way. So if you're, you should, it's. I mean, that's part of what we do as a living, but it's good to make that decision. Just, it's like Goldilocks in the porridge, right? You want it just warm enough, not
Mhm.
too hot, not too cold. Same thing in setting up systems. You want enough to see the benefits of it, but not enough that you've come up with some Byzantine solution that you think everyone's gonna love because you got it all written down in the Laurent Bible or the Johnny Bible, and everyone's gonna follow it to the T. It's never gonna happen, clearly.
Yeah.
And so it's important to leave room to wiggle. It's important to leave room for others to take ownership within that framework. So you just want to publish that framework. You want to get that framework out, and the system will help you do that in short order.
Perfect. Okay, let's change directions a bit. So, do you have general advice for entrepreneurs, people that are currently maybe sitting at their desk in a corporate gig and are thinking about taking the plunge? What would you tell somebody over coffee?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would tell anybody, if they don't know this, they should, is talk to other entrepreneurs and take their bloody advice. Don't try to interpret it. Don't try to, it's like wax on, wax off. Just close your eyes and do exactly what they say and see what happens. Right? Because you don't know. If you haven't done this before, you don't know. And once you've done it, you're like, oh my God, if they just listened, you could and most entrepreneurs really, they're looking out for each other as well, and they're happy to bring you into the club. If you just listen, so definitely talk to another entrepreneur and take their advice. Don't judge it. Don't try to, find an entrepreneur that fits the mold that you like and take their advice. The one that I did that with was my friend who's very successful, way more successful than me. And he started a financial investment company. And we were at a graduation reunion party, and I talked to him, and I've been talking to him for years, but this time he said something that really just stuck home. He said, Johnny, let me just put it to you this way. Like, you keep talking about this. He's like, let me just put it to you this way. Would you quit your job if I wrote you a check for $2 million right now today that you can't cash for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, well, you put it that way, of course. Right? He's like, okay, that check is being written by you to you. That's the only difference. So quit your job, because if it's worth it, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And I took the plunge. But that was one of those moving moments. It was a great quote. I think at the time he actually might have said $10 million. But take whatever number will move you. I mean, it definitely could be 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
And give yourself 3 years to cash it. What would you do for that? Would you sacrifice whatever salary you have? Would you make do with whatever car you got and whatever plans for private schools you got with your kids or whatever that is? Yeah, you'd make do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's worth it. And you close those doors and you'll figure that out. So that was great advice that was given to me. The second great piece of advice I got from another entrepreneur she had a bookkeeping business. It was awesome. She had tons of employees. And this is at about the 3-4 month mark. And she said, listen, as long as you're working for yourself, you're making a living. When you hire other people, now you have a business.
Mm.
She's like, until you hire someone, there's no business. You're just making a living. And so I said, okay, well then I just got to go hire people.
Mm.
And I had no idea how I was going to pay them, frankly, the first 3. And then I kind of realized, they started producing, and I was like, oh, they kind of pay themselves.
Yeah.
And I almost feel guilty taking the money. It's pretty cool. So it was pretty awesome. Some great advice.
Very good. Good advice. Are there resources, books, podcasts that you leverage that you recommend other people leveraging as well from a continuous learning or from an entrepreneurial perspective?
Yeah, so maybe I'm a little old school in this way, but I would say that now mind you, I have an MBA, so that helped. That did help me a lot. When I got my MBA, I thought it was the most useless thing in the world, frankly. But when I was ready to start my business 10 years later, or 13 years later, I realized like this actually really helps. So that said, if you don't have that, then you should definitely take some basic courses on like how a business operates. So you just have some of the basics down pat. It's amazing how many people, especially small businesses that have a great something, it could be a great little restaurant that's got a great couple recipes. They don't understand the very, very basics of a business, right? There's a profit, there's revenue, there's costs. If your supply is no good, your demand you can't meet demand. Some of those real basics. But if you have the basics, then I would say that the next most important thing is actually to have books to manage yourself. The most important thing is your own psyche and your own ability to keep your energy and your hopes up and your you need two things to be a good business owner, I think, to run a good business. One is you got to be able to be very honest with what's going on all the time and adapt to that. So you got to be adaptable and honest about it. But the second thing is, of course, you have to be determined and high energy about. It takes a lot of effort. And if you don't manage your psychology, it's hard to find that effort. It's hard to find that energy to put the effort in. It's surprising how much that matters. If it's easy to put down on a piece of paper, I can wait 6 months for my first sale, and I just need to call 700 people. But around the 200 person mark and the 2 month mark, you can be like, this sucks, this is not working, this is bad, I'm going to throw out the strategy. But if you look back at your original document, it said wait till 700 and wait till 6 months. So whatever that takes, that's your strategy, follow it through. But to do that is a lot of psychology, personal management you got to do.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. I got one last question for you. If you were to start a completely new business in a different field today, and I know I'm throwing this out of left field because I haven't prepped you for this one, but if you had to jump ship, start all over, and it couldn't be in this field, what else would it be? Do you see something else interesting out there right now?
There's tons of interesting things out there. Starting a software company that actually builds software would be definitely important and good. But also starting like an actual physical product distribution company would be amazing. You can look around in your kitchen, in your apartment, in your house, in your room, whatever. There are so many things that could be better. This headset could be better. Just putting that shelf together could be better. It's really not hard to make something better, and then just get that product out there. So I would love to. I would definitely be interested in doing that. But I have the next 3 businesses already planned out. I'm just trying to get this one wrapped up so I can get to the next.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. John, any last advice for anyone?
I think the most important advice I could leave anybody with really is going to be keep your integrity. Don't if your principle is violated, consider that code red. But everything else it's just style. Don't worry about it. Little things, all that little stuff doesn't matter. But if something violates your principle, like if you feel like you're cheating a customer, you are. Don't do that. If you feel like someone is just doesn't fit with what you want to do, but they have a ton of money, don't do it. Yeah. It's hard to make those choices, but that's important.
Yeah. Great advice. Awesome. John, this was perfect. I can't thank you enough for spending the time.
Thank you.
I look very much forward to seeing the continued growth for Efficiency, and hope to have you back on the show at some point and just get a status check on how you're doing with the 3 other businesses and all the moving parts and the plans and all that. It sounds exciting and it's awesome growth. So congratulations.
That'd be fun. Thanks, Laurent.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a great one.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Mad Profit Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or the listening platform of your choice. Also, check us out at madxcapital.com for more useful information and resources to help you achieve your investing, entrepreneurial, and business goals. See you next week on the Mad Profit Podcast.